Members, under current law, under 49-50-803, private K through 12 schools across the state have the authority to adopt their own firearms policy. This bill does one thing. It simply expands the language of 49-50-803 from K through 12 to pre-K through 12. With that, Mr. Speaker, we would renew my motion.
Representative Bolso renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill came before Education Administration Committee, and I'm just thinking, the representative cited all these numbers. He loves to cite numbers of the bills. He loves to show the laws that he knows. I just have one number for you, Representative Bolso. That number is 9. That's how old those children were when they were killed at the Covenant School. A school that had armed security, a school that people were armed and did not stop that mass shooting. So you can cite off all the legal statistics you want. You can try and make this as abstract as you want. But what we're here about is about something very real, something very urgent, and something that should trouble us to act in ways that actually will provide public safety and not simply pander to the extremists in the gun lobby who are bringing forth this legislation via their representatives standing in the well today. I think that it is harmful and horrible that we are proposing more guns in schools when people are asking us to remove guns from our schools to protect kids and not guns. I got a letter to my office recently from a teacher at a private school, private preschool, and this teacher talked to me about how she keeps a cup full of dum-dum suckers in her classroom now, because if there's a mass shooting, she wants something to give to her little preschoolers so that they will be comforted and be silent if there's a mass shooter in the school. No teacher should have to make these preparations. No teacher should have to live in this terror for her children. No parent should have to live in this terror and trauma of sending their children to school. And so I've talked to the people of Williamson County. Some of them are in this gallery, some of them are in this Capitol, and they strongly oppose these proposals from Representative Bolso. They're reprehensible, they're asinine, they're insulting, and they're not fitting.
Representative Jones, you are about ready to be ruled out of order for a vote on the board, so I would ask you to pull back a little bit and do not go to the edge of impugning the reputation of a member. Representative Jones, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I was talking about the policy. I wasn't talking about the representative.
No, sir, you were, but Representative Jones.
So, Mr. Speaker, can I say that these proposals, these false solutions are reprehensible? These false solutions are asinine. These false solutions are insulting to the people of this state, to the people of Williamson County. And so I hope that we can offer real solutions and stop trying to put more guns to start a gunfight in our schools that will not protect our children. What is one little Glock against an AR-15?
Representative Jones, that's not the bill that's before you, sir. You're out of order. Representative Mitchell, you're recognized. Sorry, Representative Bolso, you're recognized. Hang on, Representative Mitchell. Representative Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Every member of this body has a solemn obligation not to misrepresent facts for two important reasons. One, the public should not be misled. And secondly, it destroys the member's credibility. Because if any member gets up and continually misrepresents facts to this body and the public, that member ultimately will not be believed about anything, no matter how many times any such member gets up.
Representative Bolso, Representative Bolso, stay on the bill. If you're yelling from your chair, you'll be ruled out of order. Representative Bolso, you're recognized.
The statement was made, Mr. Speaker, that this bill was brought by the gun lobby. It's completely false. It's a made-up claim. Here's the facts. After the horrific shooting at Covenant on March 27, I had a private Christian school in my district, District 61, come to me and ask me for help because that school was a pre-K through 12 school. and they'd been told by the Department of Education that it could not adopt its own firearms policy. It could not provide an armed response in school in the event of an active shooter because they had a pre-K. So this bill was filed because it makes perfect sense that a school that is pre-K through 12 should have the same right to defend its students as a private school that is K through 12. And in fact, let's pause for a moment, members, and think about the role of humility in legislation. Who's better prepared and able to decide how to defend students? Those who are instructed with the care of them and their parents, or a member of this body who stands up and makes outrageous statements?
Representative Jones.
There's a movie that I watched recently called Mean Girls, and they say she doesn't even go here. And I just want to say that people who don't live here, you don't even live here. Let's let Nashville and Davidson County decide for ourselves our way forward and not force some outside ideologies and policies on our county. Davidson County has plenty of representatives in this body. Let us decide for our county and speak for our county instead of forcing the will of others, of the supermajority, on a county that has already been mistreated and maligned. My concern with this legislation is this, Representative Sapicki, is that SROs have not been shown to reduce instances of mass shootings. Instead, what we've seen are disparities in terms of expulsion of students of color, students with disabilities. We've seen increased instances of students being trafficked into the criminal justice system, when what we need, what our schools need, Representative Sapicki, and I hope you can hear me because I fought for Culleoka, I fought for your county, and I hope that you can hear my county's voice. What our schools need are mental health professionals. We need funding for mental health, for counselors. We need to pay our teachers better. We don't need more police in our schools.
Representative Jones, you're off the bill again, sir. You're out of order. Sorry. Representative Pearson, you're recognized. Oh, that's two. I'm sorry, we're on the board. That's the second time being out of order today. For being off the bill. There's no point of order. It's non-debatable. We're on the board. Is that right, Mr. Clerk? That's correct. Mr. Clerk, can you let the body know what they're voting on?
Mr. Speaker, if a member is called out of order for being off the bill a second time on any matter on the same legislative day, and if sustained by the House, the member shall not be recognized in debate for remarks on the House floor for the remainder of the same legislative day. A vote of aye would be to agree that the member was off the bill. A vote of no would allow the member to continue.
There's no point of order. Parliamentary inquiry. Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Clerk, I just want to be clear on what you're saying we're voting on. We're voting, are you saying that we're voting to see if members thought that the member was off subject?
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, the members are voting on whether or not to sustain the ruling that the member was off the bill. So a vote of aye would mean you agree they were off the bill. A vote of no would mean you don't.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Clerk, I'll wait.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, I would venture to say that probably 90% of the individuals in here wasn't listening to him, number one, but number two, how do we know where he was out of order and what he said that was out of order? Which line was it? How do we know so we know what we're voting on? Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, the representative was ruled out of order earlier for not being on the bill. A second time on the same legislative day, the representative was ruled out of order for not being on the bill. Our rules say that the body must now vote.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you for that, Mr. Clerk. So then, Mr. Clerk, can you tell me what he said, because I'm sure you heard it, that was ruled out of order, so I can know how to vote?
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, I do not have a transcription of the proceedings in front of me.
Representative Parkinson, it was ruled out of order. It's non-debatable. You're under parliamentary inquiry. So parliamentary inquiry is inquire about the rules, not asking Mr. Clerk what happened. But the rules that we voted on by the House states the process. And the second time you're ruled out of order, it's a vote of the body to determine if that individual was out of order. And if it is, then there's actions based on for that vote.
What will be the consequence if this body determines that he has violated the rules?
Mr. Clerk.
The members shall not be recognized in debate or remarks on the House floor for the remainder of the same legislative day.
Representative Love.
So I'm fairly clear about this, and so I'm asking, hoping that members hear what I'm asking. As we prepare to vote, this vote will be on whether another member of this body will be allowed to speak for the rest of this day. All right. Is that correct?
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, that's correct. It would only apply to this legislative day for this offense.
This is a non-debatable issue, and it seems to me that we're entertaining debate. Therefore, I call for the order of the day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Clerk. All right. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, the orders of the day have been called. We're voting.
That's the end of it. Mr. Clerk, take the vote. Mr. Clerk, take the vote. The gallery's ruled out of order.
Aye, 70, 20 nays.
Department of Safety, please clear the balcony for disorderly behavior. It passes. Mr. Clerk. Representative Marsh. Call the question. Call the question. Representative Marsh. Representative Marsh.